It's oh, I lost you. Yeah, it's a video for Belgium, the Belgian connection, and
Okay.
people of Northern Europe that are interested in mainstream ufology and perhaps some extras
Okay.
uh, that you like to explain. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Jan? Because we met in Barcelona. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Had a good time. It was good.
Yeah, yeah. I saw you and at the front of the VIP. You were listening to somebody, and I said, "Oh my God, that's Jan of MUFON. I have to sneak in."
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
And you were so polite. I said, "You like to do an interview with me?" And you said, "Yeah, of course. How long is it going to take?"
Yeah. Well, I just have to box my time. But
Yeah,
so yeah, we could use a good national director in Belgium. So if you have
yeah,
any interest in it, let me know.
yeah. Do you have? Is there enough light here?
For
Do
you
you,
or for me?
for me, for you? Do you see me good?
Yeah, I can see you
Yeah,
fine. I
that's
could
fine.
my lights are actually off. I could turn my lights on if you want, but
No,
how's my
it's
image?
okay.
Okay.
I see the MUFON logo
Yeah.
perfectly, so that's great, great stuff.
Yeah.
So are you now at the Newport Beach, California?
Well, we actually moved the headquarters to Irvine, but we're just a few blocks away. The location we had before the building got purchased by a company, and they threw everybody out and renovated the building, so we had to go find a new space. So we're over in a corporate business park on the other side
Yeah.
of John Wayne Airport. So if you look at the airport, we used to be over like here, now we're over here from the runways. So
Okay.
yeah, we're close. We're basically in the same place. Irvine, Santa Ana, and Newport Beach all come together. Costa Mesa all come together right at this spot. So yeah.
All right. So you're in California. That's great. We're in Belgium, Ghent, the city Ghent.
Okay, against.
If you ever visited Ghent,
I've not been there. No. What's the temperature like?
it's like it's cold now. I think it's 10 degrees or something.
Celsius? Yeah.
Yeah, Celsius.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cold. So let me get started, Jan, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead.
Sure. I just want to go back from the start, where when did you get involved in ufology?
Sure.
And I have read something about you being interested by an article that you read from Donald Kehoe
Yep.
in
Yeah. So yeah.
yeah,
So basically, I've been interested in ufology since I was a little kid, because when I grew up, UFO they weren't called UFOs; they're called flying saucers. And
yeah,
anytime a flying saucer was seen anywhere in the world, it was front page news. They would put it on the front page of the paper. People would talk about it. So my younger brother and I did a lot of reading and a lot of viewing in this thing. We were building different kind of projects, electrical, electronic projects and stuff. And we figured out that these things must be using some kind of electromagnetic energy to get around here or there. That was our thought process anyway. So we were definitely interested in it. And then my father got two men's magazines, one called True and one called Argosy, which published articles on UFOs. And I believed it was the Argosy magazine that had an article with Donald Kehoe in it, who it was very impressive to me, because at those times what they would do is they would put these stories on TV or on the newspaper, but then they'd always have the debunkers saying, oh, these people just saw swamp gas, or they saw lenticular cloud. They would kind of put it down that didn't really happen. And so here was a guy who was a retired Marine major from the U.S. Marines, and he was saying these not only are these things real, but they represent extraterrestrial craft from someplace else. They're not ours. And so that was a real eye opener for me as a little kid, because here's finally someone who, we would respect because he had done military service and he seemed very thoughtful and very scientific related. And he's saying the exact opposite of what the general press is saying and what the government was saying, which was, oh, there's nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. So we kind of got involved in it, and we actually at one point decided we're going to build our own flying saucer. That was how we got. We were going to create our own little anti-gravity craft, if you will. We were just little kids.
yeah. And then something happened.
Yes. Well,
The
then we had somebody come visit us. So it was 6:30 on a Saturday morning. My brother came into my room. I was at one end of the house. He was at the other end of the house, and he said, "There's somebody trying to break into my room." And I said, well, how do you know that? He said, well, they were playing with the screen on his window. So I said, well, did you look out your window to see who was there? Because it was actually in the morning and the sun was already up, so it was light outside. And he said, no, I didn't do that. So I said, well, let's go down and take a look. So we went down the hallway to his room. We looked at the window. There was nothing going on. So there was no noise, no commotion. So I said, well, let's go out in the backyard and see what we can see. So we walked back down the hallway. And as we got halfway down the hallway, we're talking to each other. I'm looking back at him. He said, look. And I spun around to look, and we had a wall of plate glass windows with white drapes in front of it. And the sun was coming in from behind. And I didn't see anything. So I asked him, well, what? And he said, well, there was somebody standing against the window. And when I told you to look, they floated backwards. I guess they would have gone this way, but floated backwards. So I thought that was an interesting comment. But I still thought he was just trying to pull one over on me. I didn't really think there was anybody out there. So I said, well, let's go out in the backyard and we'll see who's there. So we went into the garage where my room was. My father had turned it into a bunkhouse. Into the backyard, to the end of the house. We looked back towards his window and there was nothing there. So I'm thinking, okay, you got me. 6:30 on a Saturday morning. I'm up. There's nobody else up in the house. Ha ha ha. Let's go back in. So I'm thinking this to myself. I'm not saying it. And we turned around to go back into the house, and there, 30 feet from us, hovering 10 feet off the ground, was a landing craft with 4 landing gear on it and crossbars on the landing gear, just frozen in the sky. It's literally 30 feet from us, 10 feet off the ground, making a humming noise, like a transformer on a telephone pole, that hum it made, a low hum. And so I'm staring at this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, holy Toledo, these things are real. It's right here in front of my face. I can't deny it's there. My second thought was, this thing looks like it might be man-made. And the reason I thought that was on the crossbars, the landing gear would go up and down. They were like corrugated dryer hose. If you see the hoses, at least in the United States, the hoses on a dryer that are kind of go in and out. This was that. So the craft itself was like a brick blown up 8 to 10 feet long by 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall, completely smooth, metallic, with these 4 landing gear, cobalt blue corrugated landing gear, black suction cups on the bottom, and these brown crossbars. And in the crossbar, there was a bolt in the center where the scissoring function was. It was the bolt that made me think it was man-made, because it was a bolt. So I'm looking at it, and then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. This craft is perfectly smooth. The metal was bent. In 1965, when this happened, I don't think we could bend metal like that without putting rivets in it or a seam. And there were no rivets or seams in this entire thing. It was almost like blown glass, but it was metal. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I thought, well, they must be awfully small people, because it's only 3 feet tall, so they couldn't be very big to be inside this thing. Although we know from other reports that there's some time dilation and space dilation. So people have reported going inside of a craft that looks small on the outside and it's huge on the inside. So who knows? But very small people. And then I thought to myself, well, how do they get in and out of this thing? Because there were no doors or windows on it. It was completely solid. And of course, years later, looking at different cases, we've seen where literally doors will open up out of what looks like a solid piece of metal. So I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying we saw this craft. It was there. So I said to my brother, I'm going to go in and get a camera, and I'll be right back. I went into the garage, turned to go into the house, and we locked ourselves out. So I'm pounding on the door, bang, 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 bang. And I noticed a discontinuity in one of my knocks. I went bang, 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 like that. There's a stop and then a go. I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. About 2 more knocks, my older brother answers the door. Now, the thing is, my older brother was asleep when we went out. And I don't think we were out there more than 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes before we went back in. Well, he was already up watching a television program. And the old television sets, you may or may not remember, but they were cathode ray tubes. Well, first off, they were vacuum tubes, and they were cathode ray tube for the display. And when you turned one of them on, it took about 1 minute or 2 for it to warm up, because it would start as a little tiny dot, and then the screen would go like this, and then out like that, and then finally it would fill the whole screen, and then finally the image would come on. But he was already up watching a television program, sitting on the couch. I ran and got the camera. I ran back out, went outside. My brother was standing on our swing set looking out to the west, and he climbed up the ladder to the slide. He was standing on top of it looking out to the west, and I said, what happened? Where'd it go? And he said, well, this was frozen. It literally was frozen in the sky. That was the weirdest thing. This big hunk of metal just frozen in the sky. And then he said it slowly started to drift away and then shot up over the horizon, just phew, gone. So we looked at each other. We said, well, like, I'm 10, he's 9. Like, who's going to believe us? So we didn't really talk about it. I mean, he and I talked about it for a little bit, but then after that, we completely lost our interest in building the craft had designed. You know, it was just the classic case. And I went to school Monday morning and I talked to my best friend, Tom, and I said, you won't believe what happened over the weekend. I had this experience, and I went through in great detail like I just did here. And he looked at me, and I paused so he could say something. And the words that came out of his mouth were, do you want to go play baseball? And I'm thinking to myself, did you just hear what I said? I mean, I just told you, I'm thinking to myself, did you just hear what I said? And I realized he didn't even get it. I mean, it was like so far outside of his worldview, he didn't get it. So right there, I thought to myself, okay, you can't tell people about this because no one is either A, going to believe you or even have any sense of reality that it's real. So just shut your mouth and be quiet. So I was quiet for probably about 20 years. I mean, I maybe told 1 or 2 friends over time in conversations, but I didn't really talk about it. And then I was doing a management session because I was working for IBM at the time. And I was a branch manager in Orange County, California. And I had a business coach that I'd hired to help me do that. And one of the sessions, he just made a comment. He said, you know, Jan, if you had all the money in the world, so Bart, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? And you didn't need to work. And I said, well, I guess I'd be doing UFO research. He said, really? Oh, why is that? So I told him the story I told at the beginning here. And he thought, oh, okay, fine. He didn't really say anything about it. I thought, oh, I don't know how that went over. But next month I came back for another session. And at the end of that session, he handed me a piece of paper. And he said, here, you should look at this. It was a flyer to a UFO Expo West at the LAX Hyatt. And I asked my wife, do you mind if I go to this conference? I didn't even know that. I didn't know people went to UFO. I had no idea that there was such a thing as a UFO conference. And this is like 89, 90, 91, in that time frame right in there. Not exactly sure the exact date, but I went to the conference. I was blown away. There were 1,000 people there. There were like 30 speakers. There were hundreds of vendors. And one of the tables was a MUFON table. And I started talking to them. He told me what MUFON did. And I thought, well, that's a pretty cool organization. I think I'd like to start going to their meetings. So I did. And I thought, well, that's cool. I've become a field investigator, so I did. And then I became a state section director, so I did. And so I just got involved and I started working. And so here I am today. I mean, I never had any intention of being the executive director of MUFON, but it's certainly something that has fascinated me since I was a little kid, to answer your question.
Yeah. And how does it work for you, being the executive director of MUFON?
Oh, it's good. You know, I mean, the field is kind of has been in the past with people, you know, who are plus and minus. But I think it's getting more professional. And I think with the help of the announcements in the New York Times and some of the stuff that Lou Elizondo was able to bring out of the ATIP program and things like that, I've seen a complete shift in the media. The media now wants to talk about this subject. They're looking for credible evidence for it, which is what MUFON can bring to the table. There's other researchers around the world who've stepped up to the plate, and I'm noticing that it's becoming much more professional, which is what I intended to bring to the table for MUFON from my IBM days. You know, it was a very professional organization. There's no reason why MUFON can't be which it is, a very professional organization. We need to bring this out into the open. We need to make it a conversation, not only in the general public, but also with our scientists and engineers, because there's huge breakthroughs from a technological and societal advancement standpoint if we'll embrace it and not run away with it and pretend it doesn't exist. And there's still a lot of people out there who don't want this conversation to go on, and they don't think it's your or my right to know what this is all about. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about that.
Maybe, Jan, this will come hard for you. I don't know. I don't know how it is in America, but in Belgium and Northern Europe, if you talk about UFOs or UAPs, it's a no deal.
Yeah,
it's a deal breaker in every situation.
Right. Exactly.
Like ages over here.
Yeah.
So our organization is doing the same thing as MUFON. We are trying to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And that's why we do these interviews also, to let people know this is going worldwide. And you have ATIP, you have TTSA, you have other organizations, CSETI, MUFON, you have our organization. And people, it's crazy here. They say, what is this all about? Little green man or something, or flying saucers? No, that was the 50s. Yeah. Look at our website. And then they say, what? Look at all these things on this website. This is professional stuff. It's like engineering. It's like science. And we try to melt it together, the science, and because there's a lot of woo-woo stuff still out there. It's like ufology is still a bit a marshland.
Yeah. We just, funny thing to say, I should show you, we just ran an ad in a USA Today newspaper that was done for NASA. And it was quite a nice ad. If you don't mind, I'm going to grab it here. I need to think to do this. Give me a second.
Yeah.
So USA Today did a special edition for NASA. It's a magazine. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Maybe no, you see it. Apollo 11, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was about all the different things. So they had all different things here. But we put an ad in they called us and said, would you like to put an ad in here, which I thought was kind of interesting. So we put an ad in here, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but the bottom ad, I'll move it up to my camera there.
Yeah, I see it.
It basically says, congratulations to NASA on 6 decades of scientific exploration. Come to MUFON.com and find 25th century technology today. That's what the byline down at the bottom says. 25th century technology today. Yeah. Because that's really what we're looking at here. We're looking at beings, whether they're coming from outer space, inner space, or some space in between. Who knows who they really are, and they could be a lot of different things. I don't think it's any one thing happening. They have technological advancement so far beyond what we have that it's incredible. So why shouldn't we want to study what they're doing and see if we can replicate it? Because we could, have incredible transportation modes that we've never thought of that are clean, efficient. We could have energy. Cities anywhere in the world. Having electricity or energy for no cost or very low cost. That's just 2 things. I mean, you could have, I think sociologically, why is it our favorite pastime, as Stan Friedman used to say, is killing each other as humans. That's what we do. We kill each other, right? So why is that? Why do we have that savageness in us? What is it that makes us come at each other? How can we learn to live together? I think these beings are probably so far advanced, they figured that out. They've bred out the mayhem from their societies, and they have moved on. Perhaps not. We'll have to see. But to me, it's just, if you have advanced beings visiting you, why are you pretending that they don't exist? But that seems to be the general consensus in the world is, if you talk about UFOs, you're crazy. Or if you talk about advanced being, you're crazy. But more and more and more, the data is coming out that, no, this is real, right? This is, in fact, a real phenomenon. It's got basis in fact. It's solid. Our scientists, our engineers, our sociologists, our psychologists, everybody engineers should be focused on this and trying to understand it. And that's one of the reasons why I got involved with MUFON, is I wanted to bring that forth. I just saw that seeing this technology in the sky in front of you is completely different than believing in UFOs or believing in flying saucers. Seeing it, you're going, oh my God, if we had that technology, where would we be as a society? And that was the thought that went through my head as a 10-year-old kid.
Well, there's something like you created the case management system.
Yep.
In MUFON. Could you tell us something about that project?
Sure. The case management system. So when I joined MUFON, and I was John Schuessler, who's a former Boeing executive, took over from Walt Anders. Walt Anders ran MUFON for 30 years, and then John took over. John asked a number of us to be on a business board to help him figure out how to run MUFON more as a business rather than just as a kind of a hobbyist type thing. And so part of it I noticed was, well, if we're doing all these reports, and we had people everywhere doing UFO investigations, but there was no central place to we had filing drawers, literally, where you put the paper in the drawer, you shut the drawer, and the file was there. But if somebody over here wanted to see that file, they'd have to drive to headquarters to look at the file. There's no way to share anything. So, and of course, this was the beginning of the internet. And I said to John, why don't we have a sighting reporting system? There's something where people can report their sightings, and we can then have our investigators do the reports and put them in the. So now it's an electronic filing drawer, right? And so if you go to our website today, and you go to track UFOs on the main menu bar, and you click on it, you can actually get a search function to look for things. But you can also track the last 20 reports, or you can track the UFO map. These are all the raw reports coming into MUFON. Now, I will say this: 70% of the reports that we get, we can either identify, or they're basically information-only kind of reports, or they're insufficient data because they didn't give us enough information for them. So after investigation, the first wave of investigation, about 30% remain as unknowns within that unknown bucket. And then we have maybe another few percent, 10%, that are information only, which tend to be pretty good reports, but they're not firsthand. They're other people just saw something or whatever, or their dad told them about when he was on the Air Force, he did this. So we had that kind of reports. I would estimate that out of every 100 reports we get, about 5% exhibit some form of behavior that would be along the lines of what Lou Elizondo and the ATIP folks called the 5 observables. In other words, instantaneous acceleration. If you remember when I was a kid, my brother saying it was here and then it went gone. That's instantaneous acceleration. Second is hyper.
That was 30 feet away from you, huh? The original UFO?
Yeah, the one that my brother and I saw. Yes.
That's close, pretty close.
Very close, yeah. But I mean, it literally went from where it was to drifting away to shot off over the horizon. So I didn't see that. My brother saw it, but it was gone when I went back out. So I assume he's right. Hypervelocity, that's number 2. Hypervelocity is anything above 3,700 miles per hour. I think 3,750 to be exact. But we just don't have craft that could travel that fast. You've got transmedium travel, the ability to go through outer space, the air, and into the water and travel with very little impede. I mean, nothing changes. We don't have the ability. We don't have anything that can do that. We call it anti-gravity, but it's basically the ability to levitate large masses and hold them steady. That's what we saw. We saw this literally, it was like a minivan size hunk of metal hanging in the sky that it had there were no propellers or no rocket engines or no jet engines. It was just hanging there making a humming noise. And I think the last one is cloaking. So they have the ability to appear and disappear, appear and disappear. Now, when we went out the back door and went to the end of the house, there was nothing there. When we turned around to go back into the house, it was there. So, was it cloaking? I don't know. So those 5 observables, and there's a 6th one, which is biological effects. So if you go back to a case that John Schuster did many, many years ago, and I'm blanking on the name of the case, but it's where people suffered from radiation damage, or people have had healings. There's some kind of a transformation. They have this interaction with this craft or beings, and all of a sudden something changes dramatically in their biological makeup. So if things happen, it's more than likely not from here. And that's the point. So I would estimate maybe 5% of the cases we actually get turn out to be something that I would define as something not from here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Even though 30% remain unknown, we know if we had enough investigative capabilities and tools and things at our disposal, we would probably be able to whittle that down some more. But so we actually go two different ways. We go from the front way through the investigative process, and we also go from the back end and look at the cases and say we mark them as cases of interest, and we track those through to completion.
Yeah.
So that's the case management system. It's just basically a computerized way to track stuff. We make it available to the public. You can search the database. You can put in your location, a date, a time, a place, and see if anyone else reported it. If you don't see your report in there, then put your report in so we have it. That's what I would tell people.
Could we file a report from Belgium, let's say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Just go to MUFON.com, click on Report a UFO. It'll come up, and we actually have changed the front end a little bit. We've put in, the very first question is, are you reporting a UFO, an abduction, or an entity sighting? Excuse me. And you could put all 3 in there. You could type all 3. I mean, so you could have seen a UFO, someone being stepped out of it, and he or she abducted you. You could check all 3 boxes if you wanted to. Most people give us either a UFO report, an entity report, or an abduction report. It's usually one of those 3. And we're collecting all that data because I think it's important. Now that the cat's out of the bag, and we know that the U.S. Pentagon has a program that has been looking into the UFO question, it's no longer a big secret. and they can no longer poo-poo it. In fact, the Navy even came out and said, you know what? Yeah, you've got these videos, but that's all you're going to get because this is a national security issue. Well, of course it's a national security issue because you've got beings out there that can run circles around us, and they don't really know how to protect. So, thankfully, they appear to be pretty good people at the time.
Let's talk about the ATIP for a moment.
Sure.
The ATIP program of the Pentagon. So I know you have followed the evolution of the project and the TTSA. That's the private sector that's coming out of it. So basically, they are privatizing the ufology, the world of ufology, and it's starting to it's a private affair, like with Bigelow Airspace.
Mm-hmm.
That's become the big contractor.
So when you say privatize, I think what's happening is you've got guys who were involved on the inside to some extent, because I know everybody believes there's this big cabal, and there could be. These guys are just guys who were part of the ATIP program. And as they came out and retired from their jobs, with the CIA and with Lockheed Martin and with different the Congress and things, they basically said, let's create this corporation. I think it's a technology transfer, if you will. I think their intent is, number one, to kind of share with the world that this is real, which is great. I mean, we're all for that. We're 100% behind them for that. And then I think they're saying, look, we know how the technology works. I mean, I've talked to Hal Puthoff, who's been a longtime MUFON member, and Hal told me himself that he now knows the error in the equations, which is Einstein's general theory of relativity, and they know how these beings are getting here. They're ripping small holes in space-time, and they're coming through those holes into our space-time. So having the mathematics on how they're doing it is one thing. Building it is a whole different problem. And so I think they would like to get funding to help them take the equations and build a craft that'll do these things. Think about it. It'll be the world's first $1 trillion industry. Well, I mean, Google and Apple, I guess, both have gone over $1 trillion, but it really will be a $1 trillion industry. Whoever can do that and build that technology, it's a real game changer. So I see that as where they're really trying to go with this thing. When you say privatize ufology, I mean, we don't plan to go anywhere. I don't think you plan to go anywhere. So we're going to have these reporting agencies. It would be nice if our governments would come clean and say, in the United States, we have a thing called NORAD. NORAD tracks everything in space. It sees everything coming and going from this planet and circling the planet. They know what's there, and they know what's ours, and they know what's not ours. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go to a website and say, oh, we had a spaceship come in from whatever, and it landed in Lisbon, Spain, or Lisbon, Portugal. I mean, I think that would be really cool. I don't know if we'll ever get to there. I think a lot of them, they think with a military mind, which we have to appreciate. Their job is to protect us, and they look at everything as a threat. I equate it to, in the United States, we went through this big election, Russia was the big bad people because they somehow threw our election. I don't personally believe they did, but that's people's beliefs. They believe the election got thrown because of the Russian people. So you've got this quote unquote enemy, the Russians. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is it's the Russians who put American astronauts in space.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, Kennedy was one of the cooperators in that project.
President Kennedy, but I mean, saying today, the United States today, and for the last 10 years, the United States has had no way to put a man in space. Are you aware of that?
No, I didn't know that.
No, most people don't know that. We, the United States, the most powerful nation in the world, have no capability of putting a man in space. We haven't had that capability since the space shuttle was retired 10 years ago.
Oh, yes. It's a joint venture now, eh? So
no, it's not a joint venture. We pay the Russians $20 million or whatever to put our men in space and women in space. So basically, it's the Russian putting our people into space. So on one hand, they're our arch enemy, and they're horrible people because they're messing with our politics and everything. On the other hand, they're our best friends, and they're putting our people in space. So I'm just like, so to me, the analogy I'm trying to make is that you've got these beings out there who are advanced, are coming here, and our military looks at them as a threat. And people get all upset, like, oh, no, they're nice beings, they're good beings. Well, they may be nice beings, but it's the military's job to look at everything as a threat. And that's just what they do. That's what we pay them to do. We pay them to protect us. If they don't have plans in place on how to protect us, they're not doing their job. So I don't really get crazy about it. I mean, I think, well, there could be bad aliens. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that would tell me that we're going to get taken over by an alien race, or that, and you get into a whole lot of stuff, right? You get into David Jacobs and the hybridization program and what's the purpose and where are we going with that. I just look at it. We got these advanced beings here. They're interacting with us. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's make the data available, and let's see what we can learn from them. I think that's where I would like to see things go.
Yeah, I think that the problem in America, if it is a problem, is that the dossier, the files, the studies are always kept by the military in America.
Yes. Yeah.
Like England, they have the Defense Department, MOD,
Right.
Nick Pope.
Yeah.
It's another story there. In France, it's another story.
Right.
And in America, it's the military-industrial complex that creates all the studies or finances the studies.
Right.
You have lots of files that if you track the money, it always goes to the military people.
Yeah.
And or intelligence, like TTSA, the company, we have people from CIA in TTSA.
Yeah.
So yeah, it shows that the interest comes from departments that that study the UFOs from military point of view or defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why we need organizations like MUFON and your organization and other organizations out there who are making the data available to the public, because the military, it's a national security issue, because the data they are collecting, if used by adversaries, could back engineer this technology. And now what are you going to do to defend yourself from it? So you don't want them to get the technology, so you're hiding the information from them. So it's not that they're hiding it from the American people or from the world. It's that they're trying to keep bad people from getting stuff that could harm us all. So I understand it, but I still don't think it's a problem to tell people that it's real. I mean, and I think that's what the folks at TTSA believe, is that there's no reason why we can't tell people that this phenomenon is real. Where it's going to get interesting, Bart, is when we get into the discussion of who are they, where are they from, and why are they here, right?
Well, that's the following question, actually.
Yes.
We study the files closely here in Belgium. Our organization is very thorough in this regard, and there's always one point that we can't figure out, and that is the agenda of the let's put it like this: the extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are talking about interdimensionals these days also, which in my view is the same, because they travel through space and time,
right?
Perhaps. But what is the agenda of the extraterrestrials in your point of view? What do you think? Why are they here? Why are they so interested in our genetics and our DNA? What's up with all this stuff?
Well, let me go take it down a different path. I am friends with a number of physicists who are working on this faster than light, FTL, problem. One of them is James Woodward, who spoke at our 2017 symposium, and a number of other guys around the world. At least this is a worldwide thing going on right now. Unfortunately, none of them have any funding. The funding for this kind of stuff is all in the black world, so they're working, part-time and things to do this. But what they're telling me is that probably within the next 20 to 30 years, we will have a breakthrough that tells us, well, Hal Puthoff already told me we know how it works. We just need to build it. So we need to be able to fund it and then build it. So let's say 20 to 30 years, we will have the capability to travel interstellar. So once we have that capability, let's just say it's 50 years from now, we're out in some other galaxy or star system out there, far, far away, and we're circling this planet, and we look down on the planet, and there's indigenous life on that planet, maybe not as advanced as we are, maybe more advanced than we are, but let's say we go down and we visit those people. And just like today we track animals in the wild, we pick one of these beings up, we take them on board our ship, and we analyze and look at it, and we put them back. Now we are the aliens. And I mean, we're 20, 30, 50 years from that happening. And I think that's something people need to realize. So so why are we there? Well, we're just exploring. We're out there in the universe looking around. We're checking things out. We see something down there. We say, oh, this is interesting. We haven't cataloged this kind of a being yet. Let's pick them up and just find out how they work and what their biology is. I mean, to me, it's no different. I don't know that there's some sinister agenda going on. There could be. I look at it as just God created this huge universe. He put tons of life in it, and some of it we can see, and some of it we can't see. I mean, there's a whole supernatural aspect of this, the unseen world. We know from black matter that 90% of the universe is made up of black matter, but no one knows what black matter is. So there's just a lot to be learned. I mean, I get a chuckle when people think that we've learned everything we can learn, because every time you say that, there's more. The intelligent people know that the more they know they don't know, and it's going to be quite a long time before we know everything. So, why are they here? I mean, I honestly don't know. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to collect data. I know from the data we've collected so far, which is no surprise, they're telling us basically, you guys aren't doing a very good job of stewarding your planet. You're destroying it. You're doing things that are going to cause it to get out of balance, and eventually you're all going to die because of what you're doing. Simple case in point is the rainforest down in Brazil and the Amazon and up in North America and in Europe. Our rainforest is shrinking, and yet that rainforest is what puts off oxygen into the atmosphere. So we breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. The trees breathe in carbon dioxide and put out oxygen. But if you reduce that, it's almost like the heart and lungs of the earth. You're destroying the heart and lungs of the earth. Eventually it dies. And that's not a good thing. So they're basically bringing a message of, hey, you need to take better stewardship of your planet, and you need to take a better stewardship of each other, because you're not living in balance with what you're meant to be. So I see those two things as being messages that continually are played over and over and over to experiencers and people who've come in contact with these. I'm sure certainly there are other messages, but those seem to be the two primary ones. And it doesn't seem to be, we're here to take over your planet and move over, we're here. They could have done that a long time ago if they wanted to take over the planet. But, you know, there's a lot of planets out there. And I mean, we know from the exoplanet study, there's just, you know, every 100 billion stars in our galaxy, every one of those stars has planets around it. There's 100 billion galaxies, and NASA even came out in the not too far back past saying that there could be as many as 1 trillion galaxies. So 100 billion stars per galaxy, 1 trillion galaxies. I mean, you're talking about an infinite possibility of life out in the universe. And that's the physical universe we can see. You know, theoretical physicists are now telling us that perhaps there's, you know, multiverse, there's an infinite number of universes. So, I mean, it's just a big place out there, right? And we're kind of a small little speck.
Yeah. Are you aware, Jan, that there are military files concerning Christ?
Yes.
And some parts of the Bible?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. For instance, extraterrestrials would have explained to military personnel that they are still a bit crossed that Christ died here because he was like a messenger.
Yeah.
Like to what you just explained about taking care of our planet and the moral and stuff.
Right.
And they were very annoyed by this. We put him out of the equation.
Yeah.
With Christ away, like it's like the truth. It's always put on the cross.
Yeah.
If you tell the truth, you will be nailed to the cross. And there was also a thing about the Star of Bethlehem.
Yeah.
The Magi, the people from Persia. It's not the 3 wise men, of course. It was a caravan. They were sky watchers, astrologists.
Yeah.
And they were following a UFO to the place where Christ was born.
Right.
And his mother was she was made pregnant through a laboratory.
Yeah.
In space.
Well, this
was a classic. Sorry to interrupt you. It was a classic case of abduction. Mary was abducted. She saw a white light, and then she was put back, and she was with child.
Right. So, one of the things that we look at is what for people, and we find about 70% of the people, 71% of the people who have these experiences, you know, interactions with non-human entities. actually want it to continue. But there's a percentage, 20 to 30%, that don't want it to continue. One of the techniques used to stop an alien abduction or these experiences from happening is to call on the name of Jesus. So that's interesting. That's why some people say, oh, this is demonic, because if you call on the name of Jesus and these things don't go away, then they must be demons. Perhaps, but not necessarily. I mean, it could just be that there are different realms and different hierarchies and principalities, and perhaps Jesus is at the top of those principalities. So there's a lot to be learned here. I mean, I'm Christian. I believe in my Lord Jesus Christ, and I feel I'm protected because of that. But I don't look at the UFO phenomenon as being a demonic phenomenon. I look at it as being just life. God created all life, so we're just part of it. So we have to kind of figure out where we fit in the whole picture. So yeah, no, I'm familiar that that's actually a line of thought that's being looked at right now very closely by certain sectors within the government in terms of what's going on with this whole thing.
Well, I have, there are religious groups going from door to door.
Yeah.
And every time they come to my door, I talk about the Star of Bethlehem, and I say, don't you know the star is moving in the story? Do you know stars that move? And the people are like thinking at the door, what is he telling? What is he talking about?
Yeah.
And they like get it. Oh, you're like extraterrestrials. Yeah, that's the key to the Bible.
Yeah.
Perhaps,
Yeah, well, Jesus even said, I'm not of this world. So that would lead you to believe, how many other worlds are there out there, right? Is there just only one other world? I don't think so. I think there are. And that's why, if you listen to Lou Elizondo, when he was asked this question on Nightline and different television shows back when the first came out in 2017, 18, he said, we don't know if they're from outer space, inner space, or some space in between. So this is why space-time is such a key part of this, and our understanding of space-time. And I think we've got a long way to go to understand it, but I think that's the key to the whole subject, honestly, space-time.
That's great, yeah. So, Jan, we have lots of resources.
Yeah.
And we know people in USAF, we know people in politics in America.
Right.
And there is something going on in the world of ufology. And there are things going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
That's what these sources are explaining to us.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said resources. It's sources. Sorry.
Yeah. That's fine. Well, there are resources too. Yeah.
They told us that Hillary Clinton, the election with Hillary Clinton, that if she would have won the election, that TTSA was that small school compared to what was going to happen. There were programs ready to start when she have won the election. What's your take on that story?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I just wrote my director's message for this month, which just got released for the February MUFON Journal, which if you remember, you can get a copy of. But I wrote about that exact thing happening. And during the election in 2016, I received probably 3 or 4 phone calls, maybe even more, from different news outlets wanting to know if MUFON was going to support a presidential candidate, and specifically Hillary Clinton. And my answer was very simple. It's like, we're a nonprofit. We're not a political organization. So we'll support any president who's willing to put this information out to the public. I mean, we're behind anybody who's willing to do it. So, but when Hillary made the announcement, because she was asked that question on a radio show or a news show, what do you think about UFOs? And she basically said, well, first off, we don't call them UFOs, we call them UAP. So that seems to be the acceptable word now. You go UAP and you're in. You say UFO, you're with the tin hat crowd. You're over there. It's silly. It's silliness. It's all the same stuff. Call it a flying saucer, whatever you want. It's all the same stuff. But she said, I'm going to let the American people know everything possible about this UFO subject, unless, and this was the caveat she used, unless it has national security implications. Well, that to me right there was the killer. Because, of course, it has national security implications. These things are like flying all over. They're doing hypervelocities. We can't do that. They're instantaneous acceleration. We can't do that. They're traveling through space, air, and water. We can't do that. They're cloaking. We can sort of do that, but not as well as they do it. And they're anti-gravity. So, and we don't have that. At least not in the white world. We don't have that. So, of course, you're going to get stopped. Just like Jimmy Carter back in the 70s made a campaign promise that if he became president of the United States, that he would tell the world all about UFOs. Well, he didn't, because frankly, there are powers higher up who say, no, you're not going to share that story. So I'm hopeful that that we finally have cracked the door open with this whole New York Times article and the 3 videos that Lou Elizondo was able to sneak out and get approved for showing to the world. He got approval to do it. He didn't follow the exact my understanding is there's a certain process, and he used a different process, but he did get approval from the powers that be to release those videos. But it will at least start the conversation. And there are certain media people who've picked this up, Tucker Carlson at Fox News and others, who are running with the story, and they're not going to let it drop. And I know the folks at TTSA are just working diligently to influence those in our Congress here and with materials that they've acquired through sources to help bring more stuff out. And they really want to break the story and keep it going. So they'll keep doing what they're doing. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And hopefully together we're going to change this paradigm. But paradigms are hard to change. People who try to change paradigms usually end up dead. Yeah. And you mentioned one of them, Jesus Christ. Right? Yeah,
and Tesla, Nikola Tesla said something familiar. He said similar. Sorry, he said when I invented one thing, I changed the world. People cheered on, and when I did another invention, they said, "Please retire. We can only have one invention that changes the world at one generation."
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, you go back to I think the last major. Well, there's been a lot of changes in our lives, but was 1561 when Galileo said that the sun was the center of our solar system. And that was heretical in the day because the church and other people believed that the earth was the center of everything. Because, I mean, just standing here, you can see that the stars go around the earth, right? It's not like, or rather the planets go around the earth. So it looks like we're the center, but we're not the center of the solar system. But he proved mathematically and through looking through his telescope that this was not true. Now, he didn't lose his life, but other people were burned at the stake because they believed that, because it didn't match the beliefs of the day. Just like today, people don't believe that UFOs are real. Some people don't believe, or maybe they believe they're real, but they don't believe they've come here yet. That there's extraterrestrial life out there, but it has never come here.
They just don't want to think about it.
They don't want. It's hard to think about because. Their belief is that if it was here, I would know about it. I would see it. It would be in front of me. But it's not. That's not how it works. Yeah.
Let me get back to the Navy.
Yeah.
And the 3 videos that they send out. It's part of a strategic disclosure. We can all agree on that. But people that we know in USAF, they say that they have satellites around the world. USAF have their own satellites, and that they see everything coming in. Mm-hmm. And they are questioning the fact that ATIP is only using the Navy to get these things out in the disclosure. So why only the Navy? Do you think that has repercussions or something? Or is it?
I think it's because there's certain branches of the U.S. military that don't want to play. That would be my guess. Yeah. And if you think about it, like who's in charge of the skies? That's the Air Force. Well, they were last tarred and feather with Project Blue Book, and they did everything they could to get rid of it, and they finally got rid of it. Do they want to take back on this, quote, albatross? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just happy that the Navy is taking it on and talking about it. I mean, that's super, in my opinion. It appears the Army's on board, too, that they want to work with them on it. I don't see the Air Force playing yet. I don't know why that is. Hopefully they will at some point, but I think it's going to take a nudge from somewhere up top to get them to play nice and to put this out there. And then we still have to deal with this national security issue. Like, what do you let people know and what do you keep secret for national security purposes? I just saw a video of Lou Elizondo talking to George Knapp, and he was saying, look, it's not that they're trying to hide this stuff from the American people. It's that we're trying to hide it from our adversaries, and so it's very.
Sorry, is that Knapp who interviewed Bob Lazar?
Yes, yeah, it was Bob Knapp who 30 years ago broke the story on Bob Lazar. So, it's a very fine line between providing information on this thing, which is highly technical, highly advanced, and giving your adversaries information that you don't want them to have. Think how much we fight over nuclear weapons, right, in Iran or in North Korea. We go bonkers on that. Imagine if they had the ability to manipulate space and time. I mean, that is just a whole nother ballgame, right?
And indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's at stake here at the
Yes.
moment, these technologies or these awarenesses.
Good.
Because I think a lot of money is spent on global structures that try to manipulate minds.
Yes.
That's what they after. Big things that like to manipulate groups of people with television, with media, and all that stuff. And unfortunately, the ufology is also a victim of that process.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Perhaps the controlled disclosure that's now happening is part of that mindset they try to create. Like, it's not UFOs anymore, it's not flying saucers anymore, it's UAPs now. But what does that mean? Why do they use that term, unidentified aerial phenomenon? I think in the future we will know.
Well, I think there's, and they may be right. I don't that this is not an extraterrestrial thing. Someone from out there, their belief is maybe something from in here. In other words, it's interdimensional beings that are messing with us, if you will, and they're trying to figure out how to protect the American public or the world public from that deal. I mean, I get that, and I do see the interdimensional aspect, but I kind of echo what you said earlier, which is perhaps these are just advanced beings who know how to manipulate space and time, and they appear to be interdimensional, but they can come into this reality or go back to their reality, however that works. But they're just more advanced than us. Just like today, we could show someone our cell phone and show them a picture on it, where if they're an Aborigine or somewhere from the outback or they haven't seen this stuff, they think it's magic or that we're like, gods because we can do this. But it's just technology. It's just technology, right? So I don't know. We're going to have to continue to explore this, gather data, try to understand it, and trust, that the beings, the parties that be are doing the best job to protect us, but at the same time, trying to encourage them to share what they know, because I don't think it's a problem to let people on the Earth know that we're being visited from other places in our space, whether space and time or where it comes from. Maybe you don't want to share how the technology works, but you should at least share the fact that we're not alone. So, I mean, here's why. I mean, we have people call us up all the time, and they're freaked out because they've been living in the paradigm of this doesn't exist. UFOs are not real, they're fake. And all of a sudden, they're driving down the highway, and a 300 foot on each side triangle goes over their car at 100 feet. And they see this thing go across the sky. And they're looking up at this thing, and they're saying, holy Toledo, there's a UFO. It freaks them out. And so
their paradigm.
Yeah, it just rattles their paradigm. And they call us up, and they're all excited. And we take the report, and we're listening to them, and they basically say, well, you don't seem very excited. I said, well, that's because we get 500 to 1,000 reports a month like this. So, yeah, no, it's not that we're not excited. We're excited for you, but we're just taking your report. I mean, it's interesting. People move from a skeptic to being a believer and then to becoming a knower. And sometimes they leap all the way from being a skeptic to being a knower because they see something so close they can't deny that it's real. So I think for their sake, it would be good if the government, if someone would say, no, you saw something real, and it was probably not from here, but don't worry because they don't appear to be harming anybody at this point in time. We do have cases where people have been harmed by UFOs. It's very rare, and it's usually because they got too close to it, or there was some kind of biological effect of them being in the field with the craft itself. But for
the Travis Walton case, the Travis Walton case.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like an ambulance. They picked him up to get him all okay medically.
Put him back.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I think they actually probably killed him accidentally. They didn't mean to kill him. And they picked him up and they brought him back to life or whatever they needed to do on the patched him back up. And when he was ready to go, they let him go. It's like almost like an animal. You hit an animal with your car. You say, oh my gosh, the animal's still alive, and you pick it up and you take it home. You mend its leg, you make it better. And then when it's all healthy, you let it go again. I mean, it's...
Yeah, well, Jan, that we study crop circles in England every year.
Yes.
And we at one point, we were driving at night with two cars, and we accidentally we hit a deer.
Mm-hmm.
And it survived. It was jumping again after it because we wanted to get out of the car as fast as possible to see if the animal was hurt.
Yeah.
It was jumping again. It was gone, but the impact of such an animal, it was like an elephant coming into the car.
Yeah.
And then I remembered the files that sometimes when there are electromagnetic disturbances,
Mhm.
I don't know, perhaps like a UFO was following us during our investigation over there, that
Mhm.
the animals do crazy things around you. We
Right.
see owls also. We
Right.
will quickly get things with owls and with deers. And at one point we had missing time, even half an
Right.
hour,
Oh, wow.
half missing.
Huh. So is the
Yeah.
deer okay? He got away okay.
Okay, yeah, it was jumping again, but perhaps after an hour it could be dead again. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
All right.
it's okay, but we couldn't get to it at the point. It
Yeah.
was at night and it was jumping away.
Okay.
So, but the animals and the missing time, it's like high strangeness all
Right.
around research constantly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, if you
it's
can manipulate space and time, you can have some pretty weird things happening to you. Honestly, I mean, it's a whole different concept that maybe people out there don't believe we're ready for yet. Um, I think it's about time we start talking about it, getting
yeah.
people to wrap their heads around it.
Well, what we do, Jan, is we also, I don't know if you see this, but we create our own tools
Yep.
like this. That's like from TTSA,
Yep.
the organization. And here is one from the Tic Tacs that the
Okay.
Navy spotted. And the connections that we have with USEF, the people say the stories are true, what the Navy are telling,
Yep.
or what they are putting out in the world, but
Yep.
the images are false.
The
That's what
impetus.
the images.
Oh.
Well,
Okay. Why are the images false?
yeah, I don't know. I asked the sources why are they false, and it was like they are technologies, foreign technologies or something. That's what came true.
Well,
I don't
so
know.
there is this undercurrent right now, and I've talked to Chris Mellon about this. That there are people out there trying to say that this is, you know, our technology or an advanced Russian rocket or something to explain it away. But to me, that's just people because we're changing this paradigm. It's the denial factor. When you change the paradigm, you go through a grieving process, and the grieving process is a curve. The front end of the curve is denial. So the first thing you do is you deny that it's happening. Okay, there can't be people here because if there were, I'd know about it. You know, the
That's my
president.
talking.
Okay, the president would tell me about it. Somebody would announce this to the world. You know, I should know about it. I'm a scientist. And then you get over the curve to anger because you realize it's true. Now you're mad about it. Like, why didn't I know? And you know, how did this happen? And then you get down to bargaining. You know, this is the grieving curve for like death, but it could be for financial ruin or for a divorce or for any kind of major change in someone's life. And then eventually you get to acceptance, right? You kind of move through these phases, bargaining. There's another one, and then acceptance. I think that's kind of what's going on right now. We're hitting the denial phase, and there's people out there who don't want to believe it's true, so they're going to make up all these stories that says it's not true. I've been reading those same stories, and I've been running them by. Chris Mellon was a deputy secretary of defense under both Bush and Reagan. I'm sorry, Bush and Clinton, and he says absolutely, unequivocally, these were not our craft. So I don't know, who do you believe? I mean, you know, is it possible he doesn't know every secret project out there, and this is a secret project he's not aware of? That's a possibility. But look, I know enough, and you know enough from having studied this subject that there's a lot of stuff out there that is not ours, and it's visiting here from someplace else, wherever that other place is. So that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we love what you're doing, Jan.
Thank you.
I think you have 13 years. 2013, you were executive director from 2013.
Right.
7 years now that you're doing it.
Yep.
And, I think you are retired from IBM, I believe.
Yeah, I retired from IBM after 37 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a young guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And now
A lot of years left.
Do you feel freedom now? Like you can go into ufology like free man?
Yeah.
So you have more time?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I do this 10 hours a day, you know, 6 days a week. I mean, it's my job, you know. They actually do pay me to be the executive director. So it's the one job that's paid along with the office manager in MUFON. That's always been the two employee positions, and everything else is volunteer. We're 99.9% a volunteer organization. So it's hard to get in a volunteer organization. I've been trying to do build the organization up so that we have enough funding to maybe pay for some other positions. So you have a paid, director of research or a paid, director of or chief investigator. and I'd love to pay the state directors. I mean, but it takes money to do all that, and it takes a very big benefactor to help out.
Don't tell me, Jan. It takes money. I know.
Yeah. That's
underpaid.
What's that?
I'm heavily underpaid.
Yes, yeah, we all are. So
this guy, you see this guy next to me? This is my secretary. He takes care of the money. So otherwise, I don't have nothing.
That's funny. Okay. Well, yeah, exactly. That's the number one reason for the lack of advancement in the UFO community over the last 70 years is, well, there's no funding. There's no funding. These 50 scientists or 60 scientists who are working on faster than light travel, they're not funded. Yeah. You can't go to the National Science Foundation or to private industry and say, I want to build a flying saucer, give me some money. People won't do it. They just won't do it. So it's what's holding us back. It's what's hindering us. And we need to move beyond it. The only way we'll move beyond it is for people to accept the fact we're not alone. There's advanced intelligences visiting us. They have advanced technology, which if we'll pay attention to it, we can help move this planet along for all of us. I'll say this. I think our biggest challenge, well, two challenges. Our biggest challenge to making that happen is this whole grieving curve, the fact of people's ability to deny what's in front of their faces. No matter how much data you give people, you aren't going to change their mind. If their paradigm is this doesn't exist, you can give them data till they're blue in the face. They'll figure out ways to refute it, deny it, whatever. So that's the number one challenge. But I think the bigger challenge is one of just getting the funding to make it happen and making the break over the hump. Because once we have the funding, we can do a lot more with this to get ourselves as a civilization advanced. And I think that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, great. I think we have crossed the hour now. Jan, do you have still 5 minutes? Or
yeah, we'll take 5. Sure.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you something about the thing that's going to happen with. There's going to be a little shift in ufology in the future. That's what people tell us.
Okay.
Regarding to the classic material ufology stuff and the new upcoming interdimensional explanation. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes it's disturbing and sometimes it's liberating, this new information.
Yeah.
Because it solves a few things from the files. If they are interdimensional, it solves things like high strangeness. Why do they pop up here and there? It's not only exotic technology. It's very advanced technology. It's very interdimensional technology.
Sure.
What is your take on that? The interdimensional.
Well, here's a story that James Woodward, who wrote a book called Starships and Stargates, and that's not the total title, but he wrote a book on this, and it was based on Einstein's general theory of relativity. And I was in his lab up at Cal State Fullerton University, and he was showing me his experiments for Mach effect, which is a byproduct of the Einstein's general theory of relativity. And as he was sitting there showing me this experiment, how he could get thrust out of basically just using mass, he turned to me and he said, Jan, sometime 100 years from now, and then he paused and he said, no, maybe 20 or 30 years from now, you're going to be able to have a watch on your wrist that you could put in a date and a time and a place, push a button, and your own personal wormhole will open up, and you'll be able to step through that wormhole to that place and time. And I thought to myself, well, Jim, if that's true, then you've just solved the UFO riddle. Think about it.
Yeah.
If we had that technology, we could appear places and disappear places, blink of an eye, show up in different times, places, time travel, whatever you want to call it. That would be phenomenal. And he's telling me that it's probably not more than 100 years away from being able to do that. So that would be my explanation. When you say things are interdimensional, are we now interdimensional because we can go through a wormhole to another place in time, space and time? I don't think so. I think we're still human beings. We're just using the technology to get us from here to there. So yep. We'll just have to see. I don't have a problem with believing that there's an interdimensional world or there's an interdimensional aspect to this thing, but I don't think it's the full explanation. I think it's a partial explanation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, of course. But it could also explain some things of the Bible or
Yeah,
other
sure.
ancient religious texts,
Yeah,
where we
absolutely.
see things happening that are close to ufology, but have to do with interdimensional stuff, like the angel theory and all that,
Yeah.
all these things.
Right.
Why do they? Why? What? Basically, the word angel comes from messenger,
Yeah.
and I so believe that the UFO is a message on
Yeah.
itself, or it comes to do so. It brings a message.
Well, I think there is some. This is interesting because this what came up in where we met in Spain at the conference. I had at least 3 people come up to me and relate light being stories of people showing up in their bedrooms or wherever they were and having interactions with them. One of them being a complete healing for someone who was actually on their deathbed. Um,
Oh,
so I do think there is a spiritual world, a supernatural world, which might be slightly different than an interdimensional world. I mean, I just think there's so many different layers to this thing that it's not as simple as black and white. I don't think it's that. So um, I'm remaining open and I'm looking for the facts, and hopefully one of these days we will know the truth.
yeah.
That's what we're all after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you study the files like we do here, it's like you get more questions than answers. The
Right.
deeper you go, it's harder. It's always like a network of things. That's why it keeps widening.
Yeah.
It doesn't narrow. It keeps widening. And when in my process, my personal process, I had this effect of sleep paralysis at one point.
Yeah.
I
I
had
hear
that
that.
times. And you did also? Did you had the sleep
No, no,
paralysis?
no, no. But I hear you. I hear people tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
Sleep paralysis.
It was really it was not okay at first for me because
Yeah.
I always said, if you contact us, please do it in the group sessions when we skywatch on the
Right.
field or in a crop circle. But regardless of that, I was contacted in my sleep two
Yeah.
times, and
Okay.
I was completely immobilized.
Okay.
And I felt a little wind at the back of my head. I didn't see anything when I was immobilized. I didn't saw anything.
Okay.
Felt something like something was working on me.
A presence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
presence.
Were you given any messages?
Yeah. At first, I had this music in my head, like Arabian music,
Yeah.
and my eyes were still closed. I was sleeping, but I was awake, and I knew I was awake, but I couldn't open my eyes. And the music was so beautiful that I said, "Oh, this is great," and I fell asleep. And all of a sudden, I heard the bang because I have this uh, um, glass door at my bedroom, a very large door.
Yeah.
And the door, there was a bang. I woke up, and
Yeah.
it was all in an instant, in a
Okay.
fraction of a
Okay.
second. And I saw this dark blur jumping in, and then I was paralyzed, and I was lying at my other shoulder.
Okay.
I saw myself like I was out of my body.
Okay.
And I was very afraid at that point.
Oh, sure.
It's happening, and I had no sense of time. The entire process, I had no sense of time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like hours for me. And then all of a sudden, I was just sitting in my bed, like I was from laying down to sitting.
Okay.
Then it was over.
Huh.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people reporting to us on a daily basis these types of encounters. They're all slightly a little bit different, but they're all kind of the same in some instances. The ones these light beings, where is that coming from? Because these light beings appear to be interesting to me. They're doing things with the people, like healing them or doing certain stuff that is beyond just being in the room or just messing with them or doing something else. So we have a whole group within MUFON called the ERT, Experiencer Research Team. They collect this data, and they have 25 people that actually interact with the experiencers and help provide them counseling, coaching, getting in contact with the resources they need to deal with this, because a lot of these people suffer from post-traumatic stress because it's been such a terrorizing experience for them. At least at the beginning, many of them have gotten past that, and now they look at it with optimism. Some of them want to stop it. Some just want to be part of a support group where they can meet on a monthly basis, talk to other people who are having similar experiences. as you might imagine, this is not something you can just go to the office and start talking to your coworkers around the water fountain about. They'll look at you like you're nuts and start avoiding you. But so we try to help them get those connections made and help them work through what they're going through. It's one of the services, I think, important services that MUFON provides to people.
Because when you have this experience, you
Yes.
feel powerless, completely powerless against these beings.
Yeah,
It's not like they are evil or something.
right,
It's just like they ignore your feelings
right.
because
Yeah,
they
they
have to do it. Yeah.
They have their own agenda, what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're just part of that. Yeah.
And I felt this intense feeling of like I'm smaller than them.
Mm-hmm.
They come in, they have to do, because it was like the message was like, you are working with us on the
Mm-hmm.
field. You make contact through frequencies and all these things, the technologies and the Skywatch procedures. And now we're here, but on our terms, not
Right.
what
Not
you
your-
think of.
Yeah.
That was the feeling, the general feeling that I had.
Well, hopefully one of these days we'll understand it better.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to empower ourselves to be able to interact in a more positive way with that whole thing.
Yeah. So to conclude this great Skype adventure, Jan, is there something that you want to ask to the Belgian connection?
Well,
I'm
always interested in the Belgian Triangle case with the general over there or who saw the object, or the Air Force. No, I mean, just keep up the great work. I mean, people all over the world are doing some great stuff in all the countries.
Wilfried de Brouwer.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And
do you know that Jim Peniston knows him personally?
Oh, I didn't know that. No, I did not know that.
You should ask him if you meet him.
Okay.
I know you two meet often. So
yeah. Well, Jim spoke at our symposium last year. Yeah. In fact, we got Colonel Holt speaking this year at the MUFON Symposium. So if people want to come over to the United States, I book out the middle weeks of July, 17th, 18th, and 19th. We'll be in Las Vegas at the JW Marriott. We'll be launching our website this week, and you can see all the different speakers. And our topic as a theme is UAPs, and there's a reason why we called it that, because we're trying to target a certain audience. Military and government witnesses speak out. So we're bringing in military and government witnesses to talk about this whole subject and legitimize it. So we're hoping we get the public to come in, we're hoping we get the military to come in, and then let people make it a conversation for what they saw, what happened to them in their military experience, to share it with the world. And then we'll live stream it. So if you can't be there in person, you can get the live stream or buy the videos.
Well, we're doing some gigs over here first, but it could be possible. We are doing some lectures here in England.
Okay.
And then, and if you need something, if you want our stories or you want a speaker, just inform us and we can do something. Yeah, it's no problem.
Absolutely, we'd love to do that.
Or vice versa. If we have, if you want to come to Belgium, you're welcome.
I've never been to Belgium. I'd love to go to Belgium. I love Europe.
Yeah, it's very cold now.
Yeah, well, I'll wait till spring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on the Skype. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you too. And from all the Belgian ufologists, we love your work, Jan. Really, keep going. It's fabulous. We're following you. Really.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody's waving, I think, behind us.
I love it.
All right.
Well, thank you, guys. Good luck to you.
Bye. Thank you.
What's work to? Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ik ga de rode, maar wat was de rode knop? Daar staat dan een rood telefoontje.
Ja, we kunnen niet...
Kijk dan een keer.
Dat hier?
Maar niet uit.
Jan